should I? It is 6:06. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. We have. No, okay. It is 6:06. I'm gonna call the meeting to order.
You're just.
Owl, can you hear me? Yes, you can. Okay. It is 6:06. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. We have a long agenda today. I'm going to try my best to keep this meeting to an hour because I respect everyone's time and yeah, so let's just get into it. The first agenda item is to approve the first meeting's minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the first meeting's minutes? It was in the SharePoint, and if not, just let me know and I can review it really quickly. Okay,
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as they're written.
fantastic. A second.
Second.
And then you seconded it and then all in favor.
I was in favor.
Beautiful. Okay. Agenda item 2, yes.
Point, Richard, you're, I think, not a voting member. I am not.
No, I think he is, it's just the two of us that.
Oh.
Yeah,
So I thought you said there was always in a consulting role on that committees. And right.
Agenda item 2 is for us to have a discussion on electing a chair. For context, there was a discussion at our first meeting regarding electing a chair, and we decided to push it to this meeting just so we could hopefully have more folks present to have that discussion. For additional context, I will be leaving my fellowship at the end of August, and a new Island Institute fellow will be starting the first week of September. And so there's, I guess, pros and cons to waiting until there's a new fellow. However, I think that there's also pros to having a sort of solidified committee to have the new person kind of roll into. And so I'd like to hear everyone's perspective on electing a chair. What do folks think?
Just do it.
So do it.
Are you?
He's not here, we can elect it now.
Yeah, new baby, that's always.
Yeah, he has time. Do folks think it makes sense? Well, yeah, do people have an opinion on the timing of electing a chair?
I think it'd be great to go ahead and elect one. I think everybody should be here. I think is Pete losing?
Yeah,
Are we gonna, well,
Pete's on his way. He thought it was for him.
but we also are missing a member that will need to be replaced.
Correct.
That's the word.
Yeah.
So there might be some logic to waiting until we have that new member.
Yeah, I think that could make sense. And yeah, in terms of additional personnel shifts, Stephanie Miskell is no longer going to be serving on the committee. She let me know yesterday. And so if there's anyone that you know that you think might be a good fit, I would encourage them to apply on the town website. And the select board will be able to review those applications in August, because that's realistically that's when the next meeting is, besides the one next Wednesday. So yeah, there will be an open spot. So yeah, I think it could make sense to wait until we have a full committee and the new fellow is on board.
Was Stephanie aligned with an island organization, or was she sort of at large?
She was a community member, sort of
Okay.
at large, in my perspective.
Member of the land trust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew that, but there are other people that were asked because they represented a
Yes.
particular entity, and that's where I was
Mhm.
trying to hone in on whether she came from an organization or whether she was.
No, she was one of 2 community members at
Okay.
large. I thought she's also a person that is here seasonally, and I thought that was an interesting perspective to have on the committee group.
Right.
So,
Just a question, did Tom Gibbs express interest in this committee at some point in time?
He hasn't, but I think he'd be a good fit. I know that he's also on the housing
He
committee.
is, yeah.
And I
I'm also
think perhaps,
interested in
Okay.
facilities.
I'm also on that.
yeah, okay. So, yeah, I think, yeah, the more applications, the merrier. I actually just chatted with Tom somewhat recently, so I could reach out. Diane, I encourage you to apply on the town website. So yeah, I think then it sounds like we're pretty much in agreement that it makes sense to hold off and get the committee to a spot where it's full and incomplete and then move forward with that. Does that sound good?
Cool. And then make it.
Yes, please.
So select board has a meeting next week. If the town receives applications in advance of that, they can potentially have a discussion and make a decision at the next meeting. After that, the select board will not meet again until mid-August. So that's kind of the time frame that you'll be looking at in terms of gaining a new committee member.
Sorry, I'm late.
No, don't be, it's okay. You were on time.
Yes, so
Yeah,
good
you were on time.
Congratulations.
You were on time, you were just in the
No.
wrong place. Yeah, so thank you, Vika. So would there be a specific day in the next week that folks would need to have their applications in by to realistically be considered in the next Wednesday?
The select board already has a scheduled executive session for committee appointments that will take place next Wednesday. So as long as the town office receives applications by no later than the morning of that meeting, they would be able to consider and have some discussions in executive session that evening.
Cool, okay, thank you, that's very helpful. Awesome, well, that means that, you know, that it could be a relatively quick timeline to get the committee to a place that is complete, which is awesome. Okay, great. And that is our second agenda item. Our third agenda item is a conversation that I have been thinking about just as I've been viewing the survey and thinking about other community engagement opportunities from the comp plan around whose perspective is missing. This was a question that I put on the survey around who people think that are generally sometimes missing from conversations like the one that we're having right now, and just decision-making from a town perspective, whether it's because they aren't able to be present because they're busy or whatever. And so I wanted to just kind of share some of the insights that I found from the survey around that question of who's missing. And I also want to know from you all, given your sort of lived experience in the community, how we as a committee can encourage folks that might not be present or might not have access to these kinds of conversations, how we can get them to the table, or how I can, you know, reach out to them and make sure that their perspective is considered. And so some of the insights from the survey included young people. I agree with that. I think about young folks a lot. With my timeline, this wouldn't make sense, but I would encourage, you know, the new fellow, and perhaps you can send this message to them that, you know, maybe there could be activities at the school to involve young people, because I think that they are certainly a perspective that is important, and also one that, if we're thinking about the sustainability of, you know, the year-round community, what's better than people who can not just move here, but people who already live here and can just stay here. Additional folks that people brought up in the survey are our elders, who probably likely have generational ties to the community and often have institutional and like local knowledge that should be passed down appropriately. Other folks included seasonal residents, working class people, people with children, a lot of folks talked about people with children not being able to appropriately attend meetings because, you know, there's no childcare or it's at a time where it just doesn't make sense. And so people don't often feel like they have a chance to participate. And also folks who work on the water and just, you know, are busy at work and not, you know, participating in these kinds of meetings. And so I am wondering from you all what you think of these insights from the survey, sort of initially around whose perspective is missing, and if there's additional perspectives you think are missing that we could do a better job of engaging with.
See, we did a public workshop on August 13th, 2019 for the Open Space Committee, and this is almost the exact same list. It said, who are we missing? Chip, lobstermen, mentioned several times, year-round residents, golf course farming, long-term Shebig Island residents, children, young families, business owners, younger generation, fishermen, residents 40 and younger. That was the list.
Yeah,
But we have a lot of them. You're dog, yeah,
That's right.
yeah. We have a young parent.
yeah.
We sing a summer version.
With an older.
I resemble her.
Yeah.
This list kind of seems exhaustive, I don't know, there's no age range, but like, who's overrepresented, is it like retirees or?
Yeah,
I
that's,
thought this was more the survey, not the committee, you know. who
Oh,
came up
yeah,
with
yeah,
these
Oh,
surveys.
No, I'm talking, sorry, I should have been clear. Yeah, I'm talking about like within sort of community conversations
Yep.
that
Yeah.
You just heard hear from all the old and bored people that
Yeah.
don't work.
yeah,
and
no, I
that-
thought it was the survey responders.
Yeah,
It's a time sink. It's like when people campaign,
right,
like, do you go and spend an afternoon at the rec pool and sit down? You know, with multiple small groups, so somebody's not drowning in the water while you're, you know, talking to somebody.
yeah,
You know, that when the store was open, it was going and having conversations there. It's all the things we talked about when we talked about doing a survey of the drawbacks
mhm,
of a survey, because it's technology, it's. You don't get to read between the lines,
yeah,
you don't get the tone of the conversation, you just get the bullet point.
right,
Um.
yeah.
I had a conversation, I don't know if I was, I'm allowed to speak, am I allowed to speak? Or not?
Right now, sure, but moving forward, I will say we are open to public comments and you can chat and please continue.
I'm confused. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do anything that's violating the rules.
No, you're okay.
Oh, okay. I had a conversation with two older lobstermen about there was a comprehensive plan review. They had no idea that it was going on. And I think there is a population of both older fishermen and younger fishermen who are so overwhelmed right now with their season that they just can't, you know, take the time to come to a meeting or are afraid to in certain ways. They're just not
Mhm.
equipped to do that. And I'm thinking, that really kind of moved me thinking, wow, those are voices that really should be heard and need to be heard, because they're some of our elders and they can hear longer than any of us in this room have been, many of them.
Yeah, something oh, sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Well, just. I think the list could have things added to it. One way to deal with it, that I think we maybe talked about earlier, was reaching out to people in one-on-one or one-on-three kind of settings.
Mhm.
If we had like a rubric or a discussion guide and maybe like a one-page intro to what this is all about, to sit down with one or three or five people at a time, whether it's a group of lobstermen down at the boatyard or a group of summer folks coming over for coffee in the morning or something like that. And then recording those conversations to capture the insights completely,
Mhm.
as opposed to me or anybody, you know, trying to remember what was said and then write it down later.
Yeah,
Might be a good approach to supplement the survey, I think. somebody, Diane, maybe made the point. Surveys, or maybe Nancy did, surveys don't hit everybody.
Yeah.
People
Right.
just don't have time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it is a really good idea. I think you folks probably have people specifically in mind that I think would be a worthwhile conversation. I obviously, to protect people's confidentiality, I don't wanna have that conversation now, but I think that perhaps via email or something, or just writing names down after the meeting, we could think about that, because yeah, one of the things that has been happening as the survey's gone out, there's that sort of last question on the survey that's like, if you are interested in talking more about any of the things that you talked about in the survey, please leave your information and someone will reach out to you. And so I've had a few conversations with people just following up from the survey, just to kind of expand on their answers.
Like 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 or.
Probably 6.
Cool.
Yeah. And I can share, I won't share names, but afterwards I can, tell this group, but I think with sort of these larger proportion of the population, I think having like a sort of 1 on 3 or 1 on 4 or 5 coffee or lunch or something, kind of conversations would make a lot of sense. Just to chat more with, let's say, like specifically like fishermen. And yeah.
So there typically would be 6 members of this committee, is that correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
So if each of us agreed to do 3 conversations, that's 18 conversations. Or
Yeah.
if we each agreed to do 2, that's
Yeah.
12 conversations. And if it's 3 people per conversation and
You're
12
hitting-
conversations, that's 36. I won't call them data points, but
But yeah.
references that are not currently included,
yeah,
perhaps not included in the survey.
yeah, absolutely.
And would we want this to be collected in? It wouldn't be collected and gathered before the public meeting, I don't think, or would it, could it?
I think
When's the public meeting?
August 15th on Saturday.
Maybe, good.
It's possible,
Okay.
yeah. Certainly 1 or 2. It depends on how accessible people are, it depends on your schedule.
Depends on what their activities are.
Yeah.
Meet up, then I'll come in there in the morning.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, and I could, if it makes sense, I could put together like a 1 to 3 sentence sort of introduction of like why people would be contacted, and then maybe a general sort of interview guide, if that, and you could pull questions and leave the ones that don't make sense for a certain conversation, if that would be helpful.
But we'd still be seeking the same data points here, the response, the questions and their answers.
Mhm.
That essentially they didn't get the survey, so we're gonna.
Yeah, I think, it would be, yeah. And because it would be a more of an interview, it gives people an opportunity, like, let's say, you ask them, what do you like most about living on Shabig? Because that's one of the first open-ended questions on the survey. Let's say they say something really specific, you can ask them a follow-up question about.
So I don't see it on here and I don't remember, did you ask what their line of work was when they answered?
No, I just asked people if they worked.
So we
full-time.
don't know,
Mhm.
we don't know that breakdown.
Yeah.
Careers on the island.
Correct.
Would you want it? Would we want it? Doesn't matter.
I mean, it's good, I don't think it's,
I'm not sure how we would gather that at this point.
At this point.
Survey's already done.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think we want to do the survey again.
no, but
Well,
No.
yeah, so it sounds like then perhaps as a follow-up, I can work on this sort of like intro questions, send it out to the group. I guess your homework then would be to consider if there's a group on here, or if there's a group that's perhaps not on here, but maybe you feel particularly in touch with or aligned with. And you can kind of take a couple of people from that group and see if they'd like to chat. Does that feel?
Can we do that now? Can we talk about who wants to do what you do now? And
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
There are several I'd be willing to talk to you about that.
Okay,
I can take young people,
okay.
I know like all.
Don't get them.
What do you mean by young people?
Well, yeah, young people, to me, I think young people can mean like a few different things. Like, I think Pete and I are young, but I also think that there's people younger than Pete and I that are very like teenagers and River and like, you know,
I'm 70.
yeah, yeah, right.
I mean, before it said children, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I would assume in this case, young people probably means 15 or so bottom end and 35.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Adults.
yeah. Mhm.
So with the 15, there's gonna be like direct questions that we're all gonna ask these three people.
I think what the goal, what I'm hearing would be to just kind of have this couple paragraph intro of what we're doing and then at least start going through the survey point by point, but then kind of let the group go where they want to go. If they really, and if it's obvious they don't want to go through the survey point by point, just gather what you can.
Yeah.
Cause you know, if they don't want to go through the survey, there's probably a reason and they'll probably
Yeah.
want to talk about that reason and yeah, that
Yeah.
would be good information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is
Because
that-
that's also really good information too, if they're like, I'm not interested in that, and then ask them why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I can do lots of them.
Thanks, Kyle.
You can ask a different question on the radio every day.
Right now, it says Gene,
Yeah.
complaining about Rusty.
You need to do the song. You need to sing it.
Seems a little dowdy after one.
Hey, he'll be on the list.
So I could try to randomly pick some summer people to
Okay.
talk to. Seasonal residents, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sort of in that, well, I mean, I don't know many people outside of my own demographics personally, so
Yeah.
like the first country, so it's more retirees, we probably have enough of those. But it's summer people, my neighbors, people who I know,
You can talk to the pickleball people.
pickleball people.
Oh, I got that.
Okay.
I'll try and reach out to people with children, if they have a connection with
I think
the
that's
school
great.
and kids' place, and I think a lot of them probably answered the survey, but it's also. I think some people don't really understand why the survey was done, or that we need to
Yeah.
update our comprehensive
Right.
plan. I think that's sort of something that people don't grasp, like, well, why bother? Why are we doing this? And, you know, like, it'll be okay, but it's like. For people to understand that we're mandated to update it, and you don't contribute, then.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have a chance to have your desires met.
Yeah.
What would be an effective way to record this? Like just turn your phone on, ask for permission and turn your phone on?
Do we really have to record it though? I mean,
Well, how else do you get I mean, if you take notes, that's kind of hard to do.
I feel like I'd be more comfortable interviewing monster and digging notes. And recording it all. That'd be my
It's-
preference.
It's totally up to you. Because of my, I used to be a therapist, and so I'm like very good at remembering and tracking kind of conversations, so I would feel comfortable not recording, but it's totally up to you. If you feel like you can have a conversation and pull key sort of themes and ideas and nuggets, then, you know, if it makes more sense to not record. And if more importantly, I think if it would hinder someone from speaking honestly and openly, then
Don't record.
don't work.
I mean, I'm perfectly comfortable just typing fast, taking notes.
Cool. Yeah, just use your discretion. If it makes sense, great. If not, also great. I kind of get the sense that working class people are within all of this, so I don't necessarily, I mean, they're sort of intertwined.
Well,
But-
there's business owners like Chip or
Yeah.
Stephen or, you know, that. I mean, I don't know, or, yeah, there's plenty of people that come over here to provide service that we probably haven't heard from.
Yeah,
What does that mean, working class people, is it,
that's a good question. It's not my language, because I took it from people, and again, to Nancy's point, that's like a barrier of a survey, because it's just, yeah, what people.
People that work, always.
Yeah, people. So I think for me, if you were to ask me what I mean when I say working class people, I think of people typically who are like have full-time jobs and are part of a like socioeconomic class that they have to work.
mhm,
Yeah,
Maybe blue collar, but.
Yeah,
so we have a lot of people. Don't
Yeah.
run off.
so,
I'd be willing to try to do one group of that and one group of seasonal folks.
great, thank you, Bob.
Go guys.
That's cut back on some folks and added.
Good. Let's get off the top.
But Richard said he'd do some seasonal.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's.
Yeah, so I'll put down
Oh, okay, you're doing seasonal, I could do,
like half
and
and half.
if you're gonna do seasonal folks, I can just do local class folks.
Okay, yeah.
Alright.
Alright. Okay, then I can plan on getting back to you all, with a sort of. The way that the survey is via PDF from SurveyMonkey is a little funky and long, and so I can just create a new document with the survey questions,
that'd be
save your conversation. And the introduction paragraph and send it over to you guys.
Cool.
Great.
Great.
Okay. Next, this is the fun part. The next agenda item is just reviewing some of the preliminary results from the survey. So the survey was, like you all know, was available from May to July. Paper copies were distributed throughout the community. And were also available at the town office. The total number of respondents was 134,
Wow.
which is lower than I want it to be. But it's pretty high compared to the other surveys that are available on SurveyMonkey that the town has done. So I feel pretty okay about it, all things considered.
Curious, how many were paper versus were they like 99% digital?
Yeah, I would say I received seven
Okay,
paper copies, so yeah, and I just integrated that into
right.
the finding, like the data and stuff. We had a really good mix of seasonal and full-time residence folks, and so at that sort of top right corner is the question around residency, and so it was 54% year-round folks and 46% of seasonal folks. Within that seasonal folk sort of contingency, the average length of stay on the island in that bottom right graph, the orange section, it's 1 to 4 months a year, and that's 51% of those seasonal folks. So majority of people are spending anywhere between 1 to 4 months a year on the island. And then second highest is 5 to 8 months a year. And then the lowest two are more than 8 months a year, less than a month. The sort of majority of folks that have lived on or have been coming to Shabig Island have been doing so for over 30 years. So 61% of those have been living here or have been coming here for over 30 years, and then sort of a mixture of anywhere between 3 and 30 years. And then the least amount, 3%, have been living here or coming here for less than 3 years. In terms of demographics, surveys.
See that one? I think that big bar across the bottom is indicative of a large portion of the people who responded have been here long enough to care.
Yeah,
Due to respond.
Yeah. which I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's encouraging. I had a few people in their the sort of open-ended questions, said, over 30 years, more like, you know, like 200 years, like, you know, people who have, you know, long connections to the island, which I think is great. And then in terms of demographics, surveys everywhere tend to skew older because, you know, whether it's a mail-in survey or it's a digital survey, no matter what, folks who are older just tend to have more, time and willingness to do surveys. I think it's just been part of that sort of generational, and the cultural exchange for longer. And so it's not surprising to me that 57% of the survey respondents were 65 years or older. That's also representative of the demographics of the island generally. And so I don't think it's necessarily like an over representation. I would venture to say that, you know, it might be likely that 57% of the community is 65% or older. And so therefore, you know, that shows up on the survey as well. But, you know, there was a good mixture also of folks 55 to 64, 45 to 54, and even 35 to 44, and then lower as you get to 25 to 34. And then from a gender perspective, similarly, like most surveys just everywhere also tend to skew female, just part of doing surveys, but 57% female, 43% male. No one filled out the other categories, so it was a pretty straightforward graph to me. And then demographics continued. I asked about employment status while on the island. And again, sort of similar to those other demographics, the majority of folks, 45%, that sort of dark burgundy part of the chart is retired. And then the blue, second largest section, 20% is employed full-time. And then sort of neck and neck at 12 and 13% is employed part-time and self-employed or a business owner. And so that's sort of the whole picture of employment statuses of the community. There were a very small portion of folks that are caregivers or stay-at-home parents or students. Interestingly too, you know, overwhelming sort of majority of the people at 62% volunteer their time with either a municipal committee or an island nonprofit. This is one of the only, I spent a lot of time when I was preparing for our meeting, messing with SurveyMonkey and Excel, seeing what kind of key differences there were between seasonal respondents and year-round respondents. And this was really one of the only ones that there was like a marked difference between seasonal and year-round folks, was whether or not people were able to volunteer their time with a municipal committee or an island nonprofit. And some of that might just be because for some committees, you know, you have to be a year-round resident and, you know, things like that. But yeah, 62% of people. That also speaks to people's commitment to the town and people's commitment to the community and willingness to put in sort of sweat equity into these kinds of processes. So that's good to see. Any questions or comments so far? Cool. The next set of questions was around transportation and commuting. Right after the questions around employment, we wanted to also know about how often people were commuting off island just for the purposes of work. Interestingly, the highest proportion of this, 34% of folks do not commute because they work remotely. And I reviewed the previous comp plan survey, and I think this was one of the things that is likely the biggest change in the community. And I think if I were to venture, it's probably because the town and the community invested in broadband. And that was part of, you know, the cited reason that happened. And so it's interesting and cool to see that has paid off in this really measurable way. And the two second most chosen answers were that folks do commute because they work on the island, and folks that commute 2 to 4 days per week, and both of those were 23%, which I think is pretty interesting. And then folks who commute off the island for outside of the purposes of work, whether it was for appointments or, you know, recreation or things like that. Most of the people are heading off island anywhere between 0 and 1 day a week, so at 54%. And then there's, interestingly, and I think this is important too, there's 12% of the community that leaves the island very rarely. And so thinking about services and like food security and things like that, I think about people who, you know, yeah, don't leave the island particularly often, and thinking of them and what their needs are. What is this? One of my favorite findings is the next graph on transportation and commuting. It's how people typically get to the mainland. Overwhelmingly, it's CTC at 82%. But I think it's fun that folks are more likely to take their personal boat than Cascadian lines. And I don't know if people saw that Cascadians recently had a report on their sort of yearly freight and analysis, where they basically kind of shared something similar to this and said that Chagig almost acts as a freight destination more than a passenger ferry, and so that's definitely mirrored here. The next couple of questions are around quality of life satisfaction and how responsive folks feel that town government is to their needs. This is a really encouraging couple of graphs, because overwhelmingly, you know, 93% of people are either very satisfied, or somewhat satisfied with their quality of life here on Chagig. 46% are very satisfied, 33% satisfied, and 14% somewhat satisfied. And then, you know, the sort of final 4 responses were 1% or 1 to 3%. And so that's pretty encouraging. And then in terms of responsiveness that people feel that town government is to their needs, 68% of people feel that the town is either very responsive, or somewhat responsive. And so those are, I mean, I think that those are pretty great. I am happy that folks feel satisfied with their quality of life and also feel that they have a problem or a concern or an idea that town government is responsive to that. So pretty good stuff. The next questions were asking folks to check off boxes for sort of ideas or concepts that they felt were the highest priority in the town to consider in terms of planning for the future. On this, the way that I've organized it is that these are the top 10 priorities that the community have chosen, and the percentages are the proportion of the community that chose that priority as their top priorities for the future. And so planning to protect and conserve water for the aquifer, financial planning in the context of a stable tax rate, managing open space and natural resources, which goes to Kyle, your work for the open space plan, which is awesome. Promoting land use decision-making processes that protect the rural character of the island, preserving access to the working waterfront, supporting the school and maintaining sustainable enrollment numbers, building climate resilience, developing a long-term strategic approach for managing town assets, affordable housing, and protecting and ensuring affordability for island legacy families through like tax relief programs and things like that. And so, you know, in terms of a comprehensive plan, I think that, you know, these things are all key elements of many of the chapters. And so it's encouraging and nice to see that these are also the priorities that the community has identified in terms of their future planning as a community. And so this will kind of inform continued conversations as we plan additional community engagement opportunities to kind of take these priorities and go from, okay, we want to plan to protect and conserve water supply from the aquifer. How do we take that priority and turn it into a goal? And then how do we take that goal and turn it into a policy or an action and things like that? And so this is a really great starting point, and yeah, I think it's awesome that folks chose, these things that they want to prioritize. Does anything on here like surprise anyone, or they have questions about, or have an interest in particular?
So, you spent a lot more time going through and parsing and piecing this out and everything. And maybe a result of the structure of the questions. I don't see the big capital projects showing up here specifically. I'm talking about Stone Pier, Cousins Pier, Venice Cove, and the, whatever we do with public safety. Those 4 big capital projects are, of huge financial impact.
Yeah.
Or if we don't take care of them, of huge impact in other ways. Do you see those topics showing up in any of the comments as you went through them?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think for me, when I think I interpret, the 8th priority, managing town assets.
Okay.
That's how I interpret that. It's like, yeah, managing and ensuring that Stone Wharf is resilient for the future, and that we have a place, for per diem communities to rest and things like that.
Okay.
But yeah, but also that came up a lot in comments as well.
It's nice to see the working water fund. I mean, I think that we don't do a lot to support it's totally changed, and taking the parking out of Stone Pier is totally different now than it was 10 years ago even, and it would be really simple to invest in some infrastructure to help the working water fund, and the island has really not a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one, I like to see that it's as high as it is. It's, it's the 5th highest ranked priority, so I think that that's really encouraging. But I agree, I think it would be great to see ideas around how to do that, like you were just saying, like how we can invest in infrastructure or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I can be specific. I mean, we were working with Justin and it just didn't happen, but putting a hoist on Chandler's, I mean.
Yeah,
That's extremely simple. It's crazy that we don't have one already. And, we need to, I mean, it's a really easy thing.
yeah.
Put traps in, get gear on boats.
Mm-hmm.
That would allow potentially to expand the working waterfront too. I mean, right now, these guys are catching bogeys and they have to take them to Portland and sell them. And then they sell them for $180 a barrel, and then we have to buy them back for $300 a barrel. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, we could, there could be cold storage. That would be a lot, that would be another step, but at least a hoist.
Yeah, so that's, really important context. Yeah.
Lauren, you summarized, I really like what you said, and now I'm trying to remember exactly. There were 2 steps that you were talking about in moving these into actionable items in terms of when we're talking to community members and they go, well, it's really important, but I don't know how they're gonna do anything, or, they go down the negative route. But I really, what were your way of sort of saying that when we prioritize something, how we could encourage community members, or what would be those steps to move these into?
So I think it's usually, this is the easiest part of like, we need to make sure that we're protecting the aquifer. We need to do that. And then like you said, people often are like, well, that's never gonna happen. Or like people can sometimes be cynical about actions towards something like protecting the aquifer. And so I think that's why it's important to go from these, identifying these priorities and then moving from, okay, it's my biggest priority is protecting the aquifer. That means that my goal is to have an aquifer protection district. And the action would be, this is gonna be unpopular, but creating an aquifer committee or something. But, or just, you know, coming up with a 1 to 2 year, plan of taking steps to map. I mean, I know that there's been a groundwater study because I've read what Carol has done. And so taking that study and reviewing the recommendations, seeing what's been done and, you know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel because there's probably somewhere that has a list of actions that can be taken. So taking these priorities and moving them to goals and then hitting the goals and moving them to action or to policy.
Yeah.
That can take incremental steps towards the goal.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I need to hear that again.
So, we started then, moving from the sort of more quantitative questions to the more qualitative questions where there was open-ended questions and comment boxes that people could fill out. And the first one was, what do you like most about living on Shebig Island? These are the 3 most commonly sort of cited themes that I identified when I looked through the data. When I say a sense of place, I just mean like anything that references people's connection to people, to the land, to the sea, surrounding their community. Access to the mainland is pretty self-explanatory, just the ability to be sort of rural and here, but also accessible to the mainland. And then access to services and activities, services meaning like, you know, an accessible transfer station, folks at the town office. And then also like, you know, the commons parties and the rec center and things like that. Other sort of more socio-cultural activities that people found really important. And then the next kind of few slides, I'm not gonna go through and read every single sort of word bubble, but in every single word bubble, those are specific answers that people had. I just wanted to give an example of when I say, you know, a sense of place, what do I mean? What do people actually say? And you know, a sense of living in a community and natural beauty, sense of community, people are very open and supportive of one another. This is not, you know, this is just 5 examples. This was the most, I would say, 95% or 95% of people, when they answered this question, had something along these lines of like, I just love being close to where my family has always been, things like that. And so there's place attachment and being connected to their loved ones and the natural world was the most commonly cited thing of why people like living here, which I think is also really, really important. And then access to the mainland, which again, pretty straightforward, just, you know, dependable, safe transport with CTC and being reliable and accessing the mainland, how important it is and how Shebig is, you know, unique in that way. Then again, access to services, you know, talking about town employees who knowledge well serves our community, year-round residents who volunteer to serve our town. You know, the community rec center, the tennis, golf, hotel, arts events. A lot of people talked about the live music and those kinds of like arts-based culture that's so prevalent and really well loved on Shebig, and so that was really nice to see too. And then, of course, you have your yin and you have to have your yang. So a bunch of people like least about living on Shebig Island. As you can see, there's a few more themes here. That is not because people are more unhappy than they are unhappy. It is because people are happy about the same thing, that sense of place, and people are unhappy about different things. So I don't want you to see this list and be like, oh my God, people are so unhappy. It's only because people are so happy about the same thing, and so you can't really, you know, list off sense of community over and over again. But people have, concerns about sort of more diverse things, which I think makes sense. If you think about it sort of intuitively.
Yeah.
But the things that people said that they liked least were around, governance, decision-making processes, whether they felt like, yeah, like, well, I'll get into it a little bit, but, land use decision and regulations, whether it's zoning or how they're seeing development go on in the community shifts, seasonality and a lack of business services, which is interesting because you have certain folks that feel like there is good access to, you know, services and, kind of those like community events. However, when folks are talking about business services here, they're more so talking about like general contracting and, other kinds of services for like plumbing and electricians and things like that that are more challenging to come by. And so, in terms of governance, you know, folks talked often about just struggling to find volunteers for committees and, you know, wondering, if it's indicative of, you know, just whether or not there's issues there. And I thought that this was interesting too. This is a somewhat commonly shared, perspective that people would like to see more movement, at a greater speed on certain issues. And, to not wait to be perfect, to not let perfect be the enemy of the good. That was a commonly shared perspective of just, yeah, folks being, frustrated at them perceiving that, action not being taken in a way that they would want it to be. And, you know, folks feeling too that, you know, sometimes there are efforts that are challenging to move forward because, you know, we're a small community and there's folks with a lot of social capital that may have influence on decision-making processes. And then in terms of land use, folks talked often about, the speed of development and the type of development. And so this was where folks talked about, concerns about, yeah, the speed in which development is happening in the community and the size of houses that are being developed as well. How, going back to the aquifer, how, new larger homes will impact our natural resources and septic systems and things like that. Folks also talked, a bit about, enforcement of zoning and of, code enforcement and things like that, and just, the capacity of being able to regulate things like that as a small community. Next, folks talked a bit about shifts that they've seen in the community that concern them. There was a lot of, perspectives around fears that we may be turning into places like Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket. Peaks Island was also, discussed relatively often, just worrying that, that this could become a place where it is inaccessible unless you are incredibly wealthy, basically. This is one that, you know, I look forward to having deeper conversations about because, I've never been to Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket, or Peaks actually. I feel like I know what people mean when they say this, like I can imagine it. I've been to Cape Cod, so like there's that, but yeah, so I'm curious about shifts that people have seen that make them feel worried about this, and so I'm interested in talking deeper about that. And just this, yeah, this idea that like there's been a significant sort of wealth input or wealth immigration into the community and wondering how that is changing demographics and changing cost of living and cost of housing and things like that. And then, I think this is the last, second last, the seasonality. And this is one that is primarily shared, and I just know this because I went through the data using certain codes, that this is one that is primarily shared by seasonal residents, that the perspective is just that there's increased tension between year-round and seasonal people. And that, you know, there's expectations, or not expectations, but there's this imbalance between you know, the tax burden and things like that, without, you know, the same level of perceived support, or, well, the exact wording is that there's sort of year-round resident disdain for seasonal residents.
But the flashpoint on that,
Yeah,
from like a year ago was in one of the changes, like were made to parking lots.
yeah.
That got a ton of,
Mhm.
I'm a taxpayer, the same as you year-round people, they're
Yeah.
going to go park where I want to. It's
Yeah.
kind of common, it's understandable, but
Yeah,
it's like we're made an informed decision and, you know, said we can change it if we need to.
yeah,
It was very emotional.
yeah,
Very much,
it's, yeah,
I felt like
I can.
an us versus them kind of thing.
Yeah, we versus we, they regarding summer, it's, yeah, and so that is, yeah, something that. That came up, yeah, parking on the stone pier is discussed here too, and it was throughout, some of the seasonal folks' comments as well, and so. I think that's something that, yeah, that we'll have to consider as we sort of move forward in these conversations. And then, like I said, the goods and services was really more so about, you know, I think some people, I think maybe took this before Eagle Mart opened. Because there was discussion about a lack of a place to get food and things like that. But, you know, loss of the market and difficulty getting groceries and lack of services like mechanics, builders, things like that. And then what people think town government can do better to meet their needs. Folks talked a bit about the structure of governance. Increased affordability, land use decision-making processes, ensuring that should be remains sustainable for the future in terms of year-round community. And then speaking again to procedural actions regarding seasonal residents, just for the sake of time, I am only gonna talk about a few of these. But this was an interesting one that I think in terms of preparing for the survey, it was one that I probably just didn't have on my radar. There was a lot of this that is unsurprising to me, and then this was one that I was like, oh wow, I hadn't heard that just through the grapevine or in my conversations with people. Folks feeling like, you know, maybe consider transitioning from town administrator model to a town manager form of government. Or sort of hiring additional town staff, like a planner, things like that, which was.
I mean, not calling join a, mean to be a jerk, but join a larger town.
I know.
Raise taxes to hire professional staff, I mean. I left the town for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's, I think that there, yeah, there was a definitely an interesting mix of people that, yeah, were encouraging us to consider, like, it was like consider joining Yarmouth and things like that. And yeah, I think to your point, like, there was a lot of hard work went into becoming our own town, and I think that, you know, part of this process is also realizing that, like, we are a small town that shares the same issues and, like, planning needs that Cumberland does, that Yarmouth does, and that doesn't mean that we should be part of them. It just means that, you know, we have to consider the same things that they do. And we can handle it. You don't, you know, it's gonna be okay. But yeah. And then folks talked about affordability, whether it was increasing affordable housing. There was also folks that talked a bit about how unaffordable, getting off island is, especially younger families. We're talking about, you know, it takes my family, you know, like over $30 every time my family wants to go off island because of the ferry prices and things like that and parking. At Cousins Island or Route 1, so there was kind of a mixture of affordability conversations around, yeah, increasing affordable housing, but also doing what we can to make other sort of baked in costs of living on the island more affordable for people, whether it was through collaborating with CTC to subsidize, you know, cost of ferry tickets for families and older folks, or things like that. And then land use decision making, again, spoke a little bit to, and this is interesting too, because I think that when folks say things like creating a moratorium on new construction and limiting it to 2 to 3 houses per year, that also tells me that folks are not aware of like what the town already has in place to manage growth accordingly. And so like, you know, we have a limited amount of growth permits that are issued every year. And so that speaks to like, you know, how we can make sure that folks are aware that the town is invested in preserving what we have, and making sure that, yeah, people are aware of that. And yeah, just people wondering how we can get creative in terms of using certain zoning or policies to maybe allow short-term visitors to pay for services that they use, like having an additional tax on short-term rentals and things like that. And so just wondering, yeah, how to create land use decisions that can promote and preserve our open spaces. And then sustainability for the future in terms of ensuring that we have a sustainable year-round community. You know, encouraging young people to settle and work on Shebag, tax strategies that are progressive and aimed at maintaining the community. You know, reducing seasonality. This is one of those really sort of, to me, abstract kind of priorities of like, we have to maintain our year-round community. And this is one that I would really love to hear more of a community conversation around, like how we can move this priority into specific actions. Because yeah, this is one that like, I think has always been a huge priority. I mean, I've reviewed the previous comprehensive plan that was certainly present there. And so, yeah. And then, there was a question around what you hope to see as a vision for Shebag Island's future. Using the term vision was very intentional because the state requires every comprehensive plan to have a vision statement. And so that was what I was getting at. I went through all of the responses and kind of took out key themes from all of the responses. And this is the themes that were throughout almost every single response. Really, they mirrored the priorities that people checked off, which was somewhat intuitive, made a lot of sense. And so using these themes, I created 2 potential vision statements. I'm gonna review this and present it to folks at the community meeting and also encourage people to create their own in small groups. But just time to kind of like give an idea of like what a vision statement could possibly look like based on feedback from the survey. I just wanted to put a couple into the ether and see what folks think. But yeah,
I
so
like the second one as a.
yeah, I like the second one.
Working waterfront, vibrant working waterfront.
Yeah. I like the second one too.
Yeah, I also like the guided by commitment to stewardship and shared responsibility, because it indicated how many people that consider themselves Shebaggers, seasonal or year-round, participate and support island institutions and, you know, like in ways. So, yeah, I think you rocking on that.
Thanks. Also, So, before I move on to the next agenda item, I know that I kind of rapid fired through the sort of preliminary survey responses. Did anything stick out to folks, surprise people? Anything that you are curious and want to hear more about in other conversations? Yeah.
My surprises were on the ones about the town government that people, this,
Yeah,
I'm kind of like, you have the audacity to say we should join a mainland town? I mean, that kind of.
yeah,
Because I think, that reflects their frustration that
Mhm.
something isn't working, but they don't really. I think it's a cop out to say,
Yeah.
what they do will make us better, as opposed to why did we become our own town? And it's the forever complaints of, it'll be hard, you won't have enough people will burn out. You know, is some of that coming to fruition? Yes, but are there ways, like, how can we rise above that and do the things that are our commitment? And so I think it's sort of like for people who are frustrated to communicate, for people to learn, because I think it's an absence of knowledge on their part of why we are what we are and why it works well.
yeah,
Well, remember we seceded to keep the island school open. That
Yeah.
was the main, if not only reason the legislature let us secede.
Mhm.
So joining Yarmouth wouldn't necessarily mean that we would lose our school. That could be part of joining Yarmouth. So I think where people are coming from, and because I had people refer to that topic before, because a town of 390 has to do everything that a town of 30,000 has to do. There are two different paths that came out here. One is how can we leverage some of their assets? And there have been attempts made in the past to try to do that with a planner or with a code officer. But another way to do it would be to join a town that's not gonna close our school, but then we lose our identity as our own community. So
Right.
it's a double-edged sword. The other path that jumps out there is becoming. So I think when we became our own town, we chose the most democratic form of government there is. Democracy, messy and takes a long time to get things done. Moving to a town administrative form of government could be a way to get things done more quickly, could be a way to reduce the requirements for.
Town manager, not town.
We are in the town administrator.
Sorry, I see.
Yeah.
Moving to a town manager form of government as opposed to town administrative electoral form of government. Those are select board, would take on less of a role as opposed to, I'm sorry, take on more of a role and some say move more slowly than a town council with a town manager form of government. So it's all the same thing. It's the frustration of not getting things done.
Yeah.
And how do we get past the shortage of volunteers and all?
And I get the sense that, and I'd be curious to ask people follow-up questions about like what people think would be different if a town manager structure of government went into place, but I think that the perspective is that things could move more quickly. And that was certainly shared in some of the responses. But I'd be curious to know what else people think could be different in that model that they would prefer. So, yeah.
I didn't say anything about them changing the model of government, but I don't think it's fair to criticize people who have those views, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't, it's not, that's what the survey was meant to do, bring out people's opinions.
Okay, for you.
And I think it's very unfair to criticize respondents in that way. I think it's dangerous and not correct. I mean, we have to take the respondents for what they say. Doesn't mean we're gonna change, but we have to
You can hear it,
respect
but you
it.
can also have an opinion on something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but using words like audacity.
Yeah, well, that was a strong word. I did say that it surprised me.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of like, wow, but I guess that's my bad in terms of not saying, well, what would that look like?
I don't-
Because-
Yeah, I would venture to say too that I don't know how many people had this kind of sentiment, but it could have been somebody who has no clue as to the history of Shabigo in the last
Right.
few years, they just don't.
Right.
So they say, well, maybe we should, maybe
Well,
I think it's always.
I
so-
could know, easily,
From the data.
yeah.
Well,
It'd be fun not to know, but
Yeah.
I'm venturing, like.
Yeah.
those are four specific individuals who have approached me over the past 5 years with that very suggestion that we need to go to a town manager form of government.
Oh, yes.
And without exception, they have been very well-intentioned people who have been part of the community for a long time.
Yeah.
They're all not year-round folks, and they're all folks that are from a bigger money, bigger community history. Like, we need to grow up, we need to put on our pants and do things right and become a town manager form of government, so we get things done. But the 5 people who have approached me in the past were not people who have participated in town government here. They may have elsewhere, but they've done it here, so.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, please.
So as someone who's been in the town administrator role,
Please speak on it.
What do you want?
I think, not to criticize people's responses, but I do, reading some of these responses, I do believe that it's lack of knowledge of how municipal government in general operates and functions, and the statutory requirements that fall behind it. The only difference really, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, that would change in town administrator to town manager form of government, it's not gonna expedite a whole lot of anything. And I say this, having been in this role for 4 years, having worked with the town for almost 11 years. What it would allow a town manager to do is when the town gets a contract with Cumberland County for Sheriff's Department, when the town gets a contract with GP for whatever, or with engineering services, it's those type of engagements and contracts and relationships that the manager really has authority to be able to do without bringing it to the select board like we do now, without their input and without their discussion. So while it might expedite things a little bit, it's not going to change improving the stone wharf any faster. It's not going to change building a better, more proper barge ramp. And so I think a lot of the concerns that folks have around the government's town administrator to town manager, I personally don't think is gonna make things move a whole lot faster. What it's gonna do is it's gonna allow one individual to make some of those decisions without having to involve the select board. But other than that, I don't think things are really gonna expedite a whole lot.
There's gonna be a planning board, there's gonna be a. select board, there's gonna be
I think a lot of the
Yeah.
concerns,
Legal requirements.
a lot of the concerns that I'm seeing in a lot of these responses are, there's greater, I mean, really more personnel, more support, more, of those kind of services, is really, what would require to, I think, satisfy. And I think that's the thin balance of keeping the community without increasing the taxes to a point where what people want out of this community is gonna get pushed out. So, yeah, that's just my personal opinion.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so those are very preliminary. Survey, closed last week when the holiday happened. And so I've really, been going through things, this week. And so I plan to, it was quite easy to sort of code for, seasonal versus year round. Sort of other demographic pieces in the quantitative questions, but it's a little bit more challenging for the qualitative questions, and so I plan to do that over the course of the next few weeks. And so hopefully I can have a sort of, not that it makes a difference that like who says what, but I think it just creates a more holistic understanding of perspectives when We know just like the context to us, to where people are coming from and their perspectives. So that's my plan for the survey. And then as terms of next steps, for community engagement, there's going to be a community visioning session here at the hall on Saturday, August 15th at 10 a.m. It's already booked. The sort of loose agenda for that meeting will just be to review the comprehensive planning process and sort of the why behind comprehensive planning generally. And to present some of the survey findings. It's not going to be probably to the detail that I just did with you all, but the sort of key takeaways I plan to share. But primarily, the purpose of the meeting will be to dive deeper into priorities and how we can take those priorities that people have identified and move into goals and strategies into meeting those goals. My vision for like sort of this room is to have it be in the format to where there's the small tables, like the circular tables, and so small group activities where there'll be a person at each table sort of supporting folks as they move through the group activities and then reporting out to the larger group. That way, it allows people who may not be comfortable speaking in front of a larger group to participate. I think sometimes when there's a smaller group discussion, it's just more likely that you'll hear from more diverse voices. And then there will be that reporting out where we can sort of coalesce all of the different perspectives.
Question, will the meeting be on Zoom and the owl set up as well?
Yeah. It might be a little clunky, but like, I fear that it will only, not fear, but I think it will only be one-way communication. I don't think that people on Zoom will be able to participate.
No, I would be really good.
Yeah,
If here we go. From what I understand with Zoom capabilities and the owl, the problem with the owl is that we can't have local amplified voices. Which makes, if the room is crowded, it's very
I know.
annoying to be in the room. And you
Yeah.
can't hear if they're speaking without a microphone. What the owl does is it looks to where the sound is coming from. which is there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't think we've
I did
improved.
that with the Stone Pier discussions and it didn't really come out to be anything too reliable, and so I think
Yeah.
that's up to the board to decide, but
would there be a way to record the meeting that could then be posted later, so that folks who were not able to be here could at least watch the meeting? Is
yeah.
that a practical solution?
I think that might be,
Get somebody to do that.
yeah, oh, I could ask Machi.
There you go.
I got an inside.
That
yeah.
requires a.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that might be a better,
Yeah,
better option
Yeah.
for.
I was just trying to think of ways to expand it. so
Yeah.
we're Not able to attend.
Right.
I agree.
It would be good to have that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a good idea.
And the question, what do you envision the note taker doing?
Yeah, oh, sorry, just. I guess now that it's being recorded, note taker is not quite as necessary. Really what I need support with is, I need someone at each of the tables as we're moving through the small group discussions. I've already asked Addison, who's our GP Resilience Fellow, he's gonna be there, so that's, 2 people. But I'm imagining there's probably gonna be 5 tables, maybe more. And that won't be, challenge, I don't foresee that to be a challenging thing. It's going to be a structured sort of activity. But really just, the purpose would just be to make sure that people stay on track and productive. And
Are the public going to have access to the survey results?
not the raw data, but I'm in the process of putting together a very detailed survey report. So in that way, yes. But people won't be able to have access to the SurveyMonkey data because the last question had identifying information on it, and so I don't wanna, share that. But,
But we don't need a note taker to record it?
no, yeah, I don't think we'll need a note taker if we record it, because that, I was just worried that, if I was going to be facilitating and sort of leading things, I wouldn't be able to also take minutes, but if we're recording it, I can just review it and.
Not gonna involve any note.
Would you like to be one of the point people at the table?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anyone else available that day and want?
I'll do a table.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Sweet.
Okay, I
Like
think
do logistic support.
amazing. Wow, I think,
It's long.
yeah, I bet if I asked July, I would show them, right? Yeah, oh, I think we're good. Okay, awesome.
People volunteer to be in delivery that day?
Yeah.
Well, that's so fair.
What?
Wow,
Oh, that's it.
that's very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I scheduled the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. it's-
Rachel, just wait a minute, please.
Just take a pause.
All right.
The sort of final couple of things, a bittersweet agenda item was the sort of transition plan for me. My last day is August 28th. The I'm not gonna ask them. The new fellow, will start the week of September 1st. There's a off-island orientation that they'll need to attend, but sometime that week they will be beginning. I'm working with Vika and also with Island Institute to just make sure that the transition is easy peasy smooth, and I will be this person's coworker because my new position is at Island Institute, so I'll be very available to them. And so, you know, any questions that they have, I'm just a Slack message away. But for you all, if there's anything that you would like or need from me to best support this new person, if you wanna talk in like one-on-one before that, let me know. I think that this group is really thoughtful and engaged. And so I want to make sure that that energy is sustained for this, in this process. And so anything that I can do in the next, month and a half, 2 months, to do that, please, let me know.
Is there any way, and maybe it doesn't follow the procedure for the new fellow to be present at that August
We're working
meeting?
on it.
We're trying to make those
Yeah.
arrangements, but it really comes down because Loren is an employee of Island Institute. And so it comes down to Island Institute and their funding and their capabilities of being able to
Double dip.
staff and that work. They're trying, that was definitely one of the requests that Shabig had when they interviewed. Shabig actually got extremely lucky in the process, in the sense that in this most recent cohort of fellows, there were a handful that unfortunately, due to how many applied, were not able to be chosen by other communities. And so we had a great applicant who was extremely interested in specifically the work that is associated around the town of Shabig and what they're doing. So the town interviewed him. It was a fantastic fit. It was a great references. And so how quickly all this happened, and to be able to have an individual who so specifically wanted Shabig, and Shabig through the interview process was so thrilled. I think that, there might be a little delay in the transition and getting him as far as orientation goes, but I'm pretty confident that he's gonna be a fantastic fit. Yeah.
2 questions. One, could we get, so if the challenge is funding that person's presence here from a financial standpoint?
That's one of them, but then the availability of when they're able to start and when they're supposed to start. So it's kind of the combination of those two things.
It is a Saturday, but, so the select board has a discretionary fund, what's that fund called?
Contingency.
Contingency fund, there might be grants, maybe GP cog.
They're moving from DC, so between the logistics of the finances and
Yeah,
them moving, that there's,
Yeah.
we're trying. We're
Yeah.
trying to get them to get to be here for the facilitation and then even more so to be able to have an overlap between them.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're
Second question I had was, when we first talked about this group, I think we said that it would be okay if your participation was sometime going to be only via Zoom.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing Zoom meetings. So for this new member we're looking for, can we continue that theme?
Yeah.
So if the new member was not able to be here for the workshop, for example, that's okay if they don't live here. But most of our meetings will continue to be Zoom?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the nature of creating the committee.
Yeah.
Particularly, I mean, I think right now it's a little easier to be in person because most people are here, but moving forward, if people are gonna be
Yeah.
busy, it's not as fun leaving the house in December, like, yeah, it's just, yeah.
It would be great if our new member was a summer person.
Yeah, I agree.
In the fashion that Stephanie is a summer person,
Yeah,
and to complete the roster of diverse group kind of
Yeah.
things of who are related to big, that brings up another idea, so.
I agree.
Art, I wanna tell you that that was one of the best surveys I think I've ever taken.
Wow.
Really, really.
Wow.
It's so thorough and so good.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I mean, that took a
Yeah.
lot of it,
Thanks.
so.
I love a survey.
It was very, it's very thorough, really good.
Thank you. Any other items, for discussion that are not on the agenda that we could maybe put on the parking lot for next time, or that we think we can just discuss now?
It's invited.
All in favor?
I'm